But our next presenter has been with Final Cut since 1995.
Sounds about right.
That was back in the Macromedia days. That was back when everybody was wearing those T-shirts that Philip Hodges was wearing. He was one of the original, well, I guess, product designers. Is that was your title?
Yes.
He basically put together Final Cut Pro Classic.
The ugly one. The ugly one, not the pretty one.
And now he's really pissed off. But he's also been working on this particular edition of Final Cut for a while. And here to show you the editing and trimming functions, please welcome the legend, Michael Wohl.
I want to start just by thanking, well, both Philip and Larry, but especially Larry for giving me that introduction to the interface, because we sort of didn't we didn't account for that. Like, let's actually talk about the big picture, and I'm glad Larry stepped up to do that, and he's always a joy to listen to. I'm going to probably pick up somewhat where he left off and talk and focus mainly on editing and trimming and focusing on some of the workflow. I've been working with this. I've been working inside Apple the last 9 or 10 months working on the documentation for Motion, and so I was privileged to play with this and to try to offer my feedback, which they handily rejected. Every time every couple months I'd send them a couple pages where they'd like, hey, you have any feedback? And I'd send them like 9 pages of notes, and they would do none of it. But I went through the initial shock and anger when I first saw it a long time ago, and I'm over that now. I really am. But I understand what people are going through right now, really. Like, it is a really big shift, and I think it really is understandable why people are upset, not just because of the obvious things, but just because, to some degree, it was misrepresented, and I think that some of the anger is really legitimate. On the other hand, it's a really cool tool. They just called it the wrong thing. Just get over it. Just don't think of it as Final Cut Pro. Think of it as Josh Melliker described it, Z. It's just Z. It's this cool new app called Z. It edits movies. You can use it. You'll all have fun using it. It's fun to use. It's cool. There are some problems. It's a 1.0. There's things that it needs to grow and fix, and a lot of them. But besides that, really, it is really cool and awesome. And I mean that completely legitimately. It is a really fun app. If you try to think of it as the rightful heir to Final Cut Pro 7, it ain't. It isn't. It's not that. It's something totally different. And if you really accept that and work and come from that place, you'll be able to both enjoy it, and as Mike and Philip both said at the beginning, and you'll decide whether it's something that you can use or not. And some of you will say yes, and some of you will say no, and some of you will say maybe after the next rev. Meanwhile, I'm going to try and focus here on some of the basic editing stuff, and I'm going to work from the perspective primarily of existing Final Cut users, because I trust that most of you are or have some familiarity with that. I guess to start, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on just general interface stuff, but again, this project library is where we have all of our projects stacked up, and I just got an empty one here waiting for me called Workspace. We have a nice empty project to begin with. And to start, I think I'm just going to work with this basic footage here. I apologize for the content all features me as actor, so I'm really sorry for that. There's a pretty girl in some of it. I'll try and get her on more than me because it's a little hard to watch. But anyway, there are five basic ways to edit. If you think of Final Cut 7, there were actually, I think, 7 different ways to edit if you count the insert with transition and overwrite with transition. There are 5 different ways to edit, and if you go to the Edit menu, which is a reasonable place to find edits, you can see them all listed right here. And these are the shortcuts. So instead of bothering trying to memorize the shortcuts, which I think is futile until your muscle memory will find the shortcuts when you need them. But here they are: connect, insert, append, and overwrite. For some reason, they have these in reverse order of usability. Maybe I would swap append and overwrite, but sort of like these buttons, these 3 buttons here are in sort of, I think, reverse. I don't know why they're in this order, but connect, insert, and append. The one they leave out is overwrite, which used to be the default. So I'm not sure why it's like they're hiding it, because I think they're afraid they don't want people to accidentally overwrite any footage and get upset. So they're trying to prevent you from hurting yourself. I trust you guys. I think you guys can handle an overwrite edit. And so an overwrite edit is really easy to do. You simply just press the D key or go to that edit menu and say overwrite. And so I'm going to just start by throwing some clips in here. I've already marked some of this stuff to work with. Okay, again, I'm going to really try not to bitch. But so in and outs for your clip, and both Philip and Larry didn't really talk about this, but in and outs don't stick around. So when you make an in and out, this is a ridiculous problem. I'm sure they're going to fix it very quickly because it's so obviously broken. You can't, it doesn't stick around. You watch a clip, you're like, okay, this is the part I want. So an important part of our job is choosing the part of the clips we want. You mark it with in and out, and then you click on another clip to see what part of this clip we want. We go back to there, it's gone. Now, fortunately, there is a workaround, or more than a workaround, a different way of thinking about it, which is that when you mark that in and you're out, what you need to do is you need to immediately call it a favorite. Say, I love this in and out. I'm going to save it. This is my favorite in and out ever. And if you can think that way, you'll be so much happier. So whenever you set an in and an out, it's almost like if I wrote, now we go I-O, you just do it automatically, just go I-O-F. Just make that part of your world, I-O-F. Because once you make it a favorite, then you see it sticks around, and then at any point I can grab it by clicking on the favorite or even by clicking on that green bar up there. So if nothing is selected, if I click on the green bar, it selects that range. Now, there are more problems when than this solves, but this is certainly a huge win over that. I click here, and I go back, and it's gone. So definitely you want to get in that habit of marking your favorites to identify the in and outs. So we've got that in and out, and I'm going to add this to the project. Append is a really nice new edit form that wasn't in the previous version because it basically, as Larry said, it always adds to the end of the project. Really easy, never screws anything up, and for your first clip, certainly a good way to go. I'm now going to zoom in here, and let's just play this. This is just a little very simple action. The strange man sits down in front of the greeting cards and knocks them over. All right, and we've got all this great coverage of this event. We've got over the shoulder here, and we've got a close-up of the card, and we've got a reverse of the face. And so let's say we want to identify, I also cheated and added markers where I didn't have time to set my in and outs here. But, so there's the cards falling, and let's say we want to just take that section, and we want to add this to our project. You know, one of the other things you have to learn about Final Cut 10X, I have to call it X, 10 implies that it's after 7, and I think it's just a new thing. It's X. Anyway, Z. So Final Cut Z, whenever you set an in, it automatically selects all the way to the end. Now, Philip, I don't know where you are, but you said this was a good thing. I find this a terrible thing because it's almost never that I want to use every frame up to the last until after the director called cut and the cameraman said stop. I don't want the last frame. I want to mark my own out. But you have to be aware that it's always doing that for you. Whenever you select an in, it automatically selects all the way to the out. And similarly, if you suggest an out, you set an out, it automatically, if I set an out, can I not set an out here? I don't know where I am there. If I set an out, it automatically selects all the way to the beginning. These are weird. You don't really want that. Be aware of it. No big deal. You can work around it. Just don't accidentally then try and do an edit because you're going to wind up taking the slate and the junk at the head of the shot. So anyway, we've got that in mark. There's my cards falling, and we'll play. JKL works just like you're used to. Set an out point there. Now I want to add this to my sequence, and our same basic 3-point editing rules that we're all familiar with from Final Cut Pro work. You put your playhead right where you want the edit to go, right there, let's say, and we want that to be where our edit happens. We'll assume those cards are going to fall. I've got my playhead serving as the new in point. I've got an in and an out up here in the viewer. I'm going to do a basic overwrite edit by pressing the D key, and voila. Now I've got a second clip. Shift Z so you can see the whole thing fitting, and we've got a nice little basic edit. And hopefully my timing is not bad, since for some reason it works more or less. I keep looking over there instead of looking at the thing right in front of me. I'm like craning my neck to see what's going to happen. So we've done, now that's a basic 3-point edit. I'm not going to bore you with insert edits. You all know how insert edits work. They push things out of the way. The append edit is very straightforward, just always throws it at the end. But what you don't get from looking at this menu is back timing. Right? We used to be able to, in Final Cut Pro, you could choose whether to set an in the timeline or an out in the timeline. So for example, let's say I want to go to this shot. Where's the close-up of the cards being knocked over here? Find the frame where the cards get knocked. Right about there, and I'm going to set an out point there, right? And then, of course, I do have to set an in, and I wasn't paying attention, so I'm just going to guess and make that about 2 seconds long. So I've got an in and an out mark, but what I care about here is the out point. I want to line the out point up with this edit over here, because I want that to replace this section here, I should say, to overwrite that section there, and I want it to end right at this spot. Well, if by default, if you just do overwrite, in fact, if you do any of these edits, connect, insert, append, overwrite, append doesn't count, but connect, insert, or overwrite, what's going to happen is it's going to use that playhead as the end point. Fortunately, all you got to do is just shift your mind a little bit. All right, you don't have to shift your mind. Just use the Shift key. And if you do Shift D or Shift W or Shift Q, you get a back time edit. So again, I'll just show you first. If I press D, this is what happens. It edits it in starting at that point. I'm going to undo and press Shift D, and I get a back time edit. So now it lines up at the right spot, and we cut to the close-up. It knocks it over, and the edit, and probably I didn't have the frame lined up there. I got a little flash frame there, but don't blame me. Anyway, just that's bad editing. Don't blame the software, I guess is what I mean. I should have been careful to be more on the edit. So anyway, back timing edits is a really important aspect of our work. We frequently, that endpoint is only useful so often. It's important to know it. It's not obvious anywhere in the app. You have to, and this is a trick that I did when I first got the app, is I went into the customized commands and I just started searching through the list of keyboard shortcuts. And it's a really good thing to do because, believe me, there are hundreds of keyboard shortcuts that you wouldn't know about any other way, unless you take Larry's training or my training or Philip's training or something like that, where we try to offer some of those things. But there's so many commands that are in there that you wouldn't have any idea of unless you hunt for them, or again, you get some training from somebody who's done the hunting for you. It didn't open for some reason. Customized commands. This is your keyboard editor, and this is where you see all your keyboards. And so in here, I could type in, overwrite, and it'll show me. I can do, all these different options. And of course, we can customize this so I can add an audio only. I could add these additional ones. Right now, you have overwrite and back time to overwrite. There's Shift D. In fact, if I type in back time, we'll see all those little back timed. Of course, my screen's too small to see them, but anyway, there are all these options that are in here. Here are the three main ones here: connect, back time, insert back time, and overwrite back time. And so those are all there for you. There's a ton of shortcuts in there, both assigned and unassigned, that you can use for your own work. It does have this really annoying habit of every time you open this, even though it's the default set, and if I try to default set it, if I change the default set, it won't let me. It still makes me try and save the default set. And then it's going to say, but you can't save the default set because it's the default. You want to make a copy? Anyway. Just smile and nod. Just thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's talk about audio only and video only, because that's another thing. Again, I'm trying to skip over the really boring basic stuff and get to the useful stuff here. Audio only and video only edits happen a lot. We want to put a shot in here. Let's say we've got this little cutaway of the looking over the shoulder here.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't want to hear the director saying yes. I've already trimmed these, so this will be super easy here. And let's say we want to drop this in. I was going to do this. Yeah, I'm going to do it as a connect. So I want to drop this in somewhere in here. He looks, and it's going to be a POV, so maybe once he settles down right about there, we want to do it. I'm not sure where I want to go. I don't want to commit. So just like putting a track on V2 in Final Cut 1 for those people who were afraid to commit and do an actual overwrite, you know who you were. You'd put your clip up on V2. Same idea. We just call it connecting because it sounds cooler. It sounds, all networky and Facebooky. So we're going to connect with our stuff here. I'm going to press Q, and that's going to do a connect edit. The only problem is...
Yes.
Okay, slate it.
We don't want to hear Slate in anywhere in this, we don't want to hear the audio there. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to redo it, but before I do, I'm going to change my my video, or my edit mode, I guess. So wait, what do they call it? There's a source media setting. The source media setting, I'm going to change this to video only. And you see you can do it in two places, here in the edit menu, or in the little pop-up right here next to, right next to this here. There's a little pop-up where you can choose them, and you see those shortcuts there for you. So I'm going to set it to video only. You'll notice that those little things light up blue, which is kind of handy. When it's audio only, they light up green, and when it's all, they're nice and gray. So you just have a glimpse. You can identify what state you're in. Now, is this as much power as we had with the patch panel? No, nowhere near as much power, but a lot easier. That patch panel made a lot of people miserable. So this is a really nice, simplified version that allows you to do an audio only or video only. There's a couple problems with it, but for the most part, it's good. Let's go back and we'll do that connect edit now.